We did it!
Hi everyone, I'm Brian.
And I'm Shauna.
And our channel is Lyf Uninterrupted. If you haven't joined us before, welcome. If this is your first time, hey, consider subscribing. We'd love to have you join our Lou crew. So through the magic of television, we are here with you at Lake Havasu. In the background, you see the iconic London Bridge. We're going to take a little tour of that, give you a little bit of information on how that was brought over from London and then reassembled here in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. London Bridge was built in the 1830s and formerly spanned the River Thames in London, England. It was dismantled in 1967 and relocated to Arizona. The Arizona Bridge is a reinforced concrete structure clad in the original masonry of the 1830s bridge, which was purchased by Robert McCullough from the City of London. McCullough had exterior granite blocks from the original bridge numbered and transported to America to construct the present bridge in Lake Havasu City. The 930-foot bridge was completed in 1971. Well, if you've been watching our other 30-day boondocking challenge videos, you know that we've completed week 1 and 2, week 3, and this is week 4.
Woo!
We are done.
We're done.
So this video is going to be a wrap-up our experiences during our 30 days of boondocking. Kind of give you all the particulars about how we did it, why we did it, and the costs of, in our particular case, 30 days of boondocking or dry camping.
We'll also share lessons learned along the way.
Yeah, so stick around to the end, all that's coming up. So we love coming to you from these locations. It's another bright sunny day, if you can't tell. The sun is upon us about midday.
Yes.
So we're face lit quite a bit, wearing our shades again. All right, so some of you are probably asking yourselves, and we did after about week 2, why in the heck are we taking on a 30-day boondocking challenge? Now, we have dry camped or boondocked in the past. I think the longest we've ever done it is about a week or so. So we're not completely foreign to it.
Right.
But we just wanted to do 30 days because that's a pretty good stretch for most people. It's hard for people to comprehend or contemplate what it's going to take to do 30 days of truly off-grid living.
Right. Yeah, and there were several different things that we wanted to accomplish, or several different goals that we had along the way. For me, it was having the opportunity just to stay in one place, for the most part, I should say, but to get to know that area, really enjoy, settle in, and then we had the added benefit of having family and friends with us, so that just was kind of the cherry on top. Right,
we've been busy, and if you've watched any of our previous videos, which we hope you have, and some of you are loyal viewers from day one, that's awesome. And if you've watched those videos, you've noticed that we traveled about 8,000 miles, 17 states in about 6.5, 7 months. That's a lot of movement.
That's a lot.
And we just wanted to slow down, wanted to kind of enjoy the area we were in. It is the desert Southwest. We're totally familiar with this part of the country, so it's not foreign to us.
Right.
But this time of year, it's awesome here. 70s, 60s, 70s, and the night we get down to in the 30s in some cases. So we'll talk about, how some of our costs increase when the temperature gets much colder. Obviously, some costs increase.
Yes. And as Brian mentioned, we have boondocked in the past for about a week. One area that we haven't boondocked is the desert. So this is our first opportunity to really boondock for this long in the desert. And it was a great experience and one that we're excited to share with you.
Camping out in the desert or anywhere really for a long weekend, 2 days, 3 days, 4-day weekend is entirely different than going for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. You have certainly more things to consider. And really it kind of changes the way you think about the consumption of your resources. Well, one of the reasons we wanted to do the 30-day challenge is to see just how effectively we could manage all of our resources, water, propane, battery power, all of those things that go into living off-grid.
Right. And leading into that is to understand better how our coach was going to handle that, how the systems in our coach was going to handle that, because again, we've never put it through this test before. Another area that we wanted to explore was how much money it would actually save us boondocking, and you'll be interested to hear the results at the end of the video.
One of the big reasons, apart from just experiencing 30 days of living off-grid, that we wanted to do the boondocking challenge, it's not really part of the challenge per se, but there was a lot of maintenance that I needed to do on the rig. I needed to replace one of the slide seals, do some work on the engine. I needed to do some work on the battery and the electrical system. We installed a new inverter. Aaron Jones from Jones into Travel was nice enough to come out and give me a hand doing this. Actually, he did most of the work. I stood by and laughed as he dropped tools and created sparks and things like that. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, got the inverter installed. I'm going to go through and tidy up all of this wiring, put some black split loom on this, and put some clamps up here and get this all secured into place. I resealed some of the vents on top of the coach, took off some of the old sealant, put all brand new sealant on. So that's something that is awesome to do here in the desert because it's sunny and warm. No rain for days and days at a time. So if you have that kind of maintenance to do and you're in the desert Southwest or plan on coming, that's the time to do it for sure. A couple times I needed some hardware and things like that, so we just flew into Quartzsite at a couple of different little hardware stores, and they had everything I needed, fortunately.
Right. Yeah.
At a much higher cost, but you know, what are you going to do?
So do you think overall you were pretty productive?
I do. A couple things I didn't get done, but you know, they're not showstoppers or deal breakers. I got the major priority one stuff out of the way, so that's what was important. Let's talk about some of the lessons learned in doing this 30-day challenge. I think everyone will have different outcomes.
Definitely.
One major lesson that we learned is that probably need to do a solar upgrade at some point. I have 400 watts and 400 amp hours of battle-born lithium batteries. There were a few days that were overcast, super cold at night. It really drains the batteries when you have to run the furnace. So I was a little disappointed in the solar energy being pumped back in, but that's just a function of quantity. I just don't have enough to replace what's being taken out, especially on cold days. Now we do have the generator. I can fire that up and charge the batteries. Not a huge deal. We have to look at what that's going to cost you know, per hour. I think right now our generator is using about 3/4 of a gallon per hour of fuel at $2.80, let's say average. And we have to factor that against what it would cost to upgrade, say 800 watts of solar power. That would be probably another $1,300, $1,400, $1,500. You know, so the return would be many months versus just using the generator on occasion to pump the batteries back up. So we're kind of on the fence about whether or not we're going to upgrade.
So would you say that that was probably one of our biggest disappointments?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed, but then again,
eye-opening.
Then again, yeah, you know, it's the batteries are going to get depleted when you run the furnace.
For me, one of the lessons learned in staying put and slowing down and staying in one area as long as we did was the opportunity to spend more time with family and friends, to explore the area. And then the other one was decision and planning fatigue. That went down, oh my gosh, dramatically.
Yeah, you hear this from a lot of full-time RVers, especially ones that move quite often, and that is decision fatigue or analysis paralysis, whatever you want to call it. You know, constantly trying to figure out where you're going to go, where you're going to stay, how long you're going to be driving, all the things that go into relocating to new areas on a regular basis. When you stay put for 30 days, month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, that reduces dramatically. So we both felt the effect of that, and it was a positive effect. We
did move around. We went to Quartzsite and we stayed there for about 2 weeks. There was a maximum time that you could stay there, and I think that was 14 days. So we had to move on, and the next place that we went was to Parker. We were there for 4 days, and from Parker we then moved to Lake Havasu City, and we're staying in an area called the Steps. We didn't move far, and there wasn't a lot of planning that went into having to do that. So when we say that our decision and planning fatigue went down dramatically, it was because we stayed in areas a little longer, but we didn't travel far. So
right, from Quartzsite, you know, to Parker is only about I think 15 miles, something like that, 20 miles where we camped. And then from Parker here to Lake Havasu was another, I think, 50 or 60 miles, something like that. So, I mean, certainly less than 100 miles traveled during that whole 30 days. We'll get into the costs of, you know, doing that, which is dramatically lower than traveling on a regular basis every 2 weeks or so.
Yes, and that's what we came from. That's how our whole last 8-9 months was.
All right, let's get into our resources and what we did to conserve those resources as much as possible. So first off is going to be water. We used approximately 170 gallons of water total during the entire month. Might seem like a lot, but keep in mind the average U.S. household per person, you use about 101 gallons of water every single day per person.
That is a lot of water.
We used 170 gallons in 30 days.
Right, and that is taking into account that we had a composting toilet, so we weren't having to flush that water down.
Yeah, so that came out to about 6 gallons per day combined for both of us.
Right.
And the dogs.
Which actually, that kind of surprised me. Knowing how well we worked at conserving water, or how hard we worked at it, I was shocked when we ran that number.
I was. But you just have to keep in mind, you know, every time you turn the faucet on, every time you brush your teeth, all that water that escapes, you may use some of it goes down the drain. Yeah, and then again, that was an estimate. It could be slightly less, it could be slightly more, but we calculated approximately 170 gallons.
Yes. And again, that would only be for showers. I believe we had showers probably twice a week, and I think that's where the majority of the water went. We did dishes about 3 times a week, small. I try to put less than a gallon of water in the sink. The dog's water bowl, that's a gallon of water.
So before you get critical of us for taking showers twice a week.
In case you picked up on that.
We take a shower every 4th day, but in between we do use the adult wipes. And look at our last video.
Yes.
We cover that and how we keep ourselves clean. And
oh, as you said, fresh and spiffy.
Fresh and spiffy, I think the term was. So, you know, we're not dirty by any means.
No.
And that doesn't take into account drinking water. Normally, we drink the water right out of our holding tank because I have a super awesome filtration system. I'm going to do a video on that upcoming here, hopefully in the next month or so. But normally we would drink water from our holding tanks. In this case, we didn't. We went and bought bottled water or filtered water and filled up 1-gallon jugs.
So could we have conserved more water?
I don't know. I think it would have been tough. We were super conscious of it. We
were.
Don't let the faucet run. When we do wash or rinse, we turn the water on to a trickle. I just don't know how we could have.
I don't know.
Apart from not taking showers at all.
Right, I mean, or not washing dishes at all. Unless, I don't know. If you have gone through a 30-day boondocking challenge and have used less water and have a composting toilet, I guess it doesn't even matter if they have a composting toilet.
Doesn't matter.
Let us know. Let us know how your numbers compare to ours.
Well, that's an important note. Now, since we have a composting toilet, none of our fresh water or used gray water from the shower, dishes, or anything was used to flush the toilet.
Right.
And the estimates are, I've read, as much as 1/4 to 1/3 of your fresh water, depending on how much water you use. And if you have a normal RV toilet, you should be using enough water to make sure that things go down and stay down and don't get all stuck and all that stuff.
You don't get the pyramid.
Yeah. Had we had a normal RV toilet for 30 days, probably would have increased our water usage by
substantially.
100 gallons?
Yes.
Maybe?
Absolutely.
50? Probably 50.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe not 100, but certainly quite a bit more than we did.
Definitely. So again, 170 gallons of water is what we used in 30 days. Let us know if you've used less and how you did that.
Inquiring minds would like to know.
Yes, they would.
All right, next on the list is propane. I mentioned earlier that there were quite a few cold days in all areas that we've been in, as low as the low 30s to mid 30s. And we like to keep our coach at about 68 degrees, which is typical. We like to keep our French Bulldogs comfortable. If not, they get grumpy. So we had to fill the spare 5-gallon propane tank twice. So that was a total of 8.6 gallons. And then we filled our coach, didn't actually fill it, we put about 5 gallons of propane in our onboard propane tank as we left Quartzsite going to Parker. So yeah, propane consumption can vary dramatically depending on where you are, depending on your comfort level, whether you want it colder or warmer. So it could be different for you for sure. As
Brian mentioned, we could probably keep that heat down at, I don't know, 60 degrees maybe even 55 on a good night, but it's our French Bulldogs that warrant we keep that propane going, or that furnace going.
They get grumpy.
They do, and they start screeching, and then they want to come in bed with us, and we can't have that, so. They snore.
Yeah, you have the lesser of two evils, I suppose. Either keep the coach at a nice temperature for the bulldogs, or they sleep with you and snore all night. All right, so that leads into generator usage. We did have to use the generator a few times because, as I mentioned earlier, you know, with it being cold, the furnace really does suck the juice from the battery. So we did use the generator for a total of, I think, 8 hours or so. It draws on average about 3/4 of a gallon of fuel per hour. So we estimate the cost, you know, being at $2.80 per gallon, using roughly $16.75 of fuel from the coach fuel tank to power the generator.
Our composting toilet was a huge advantage, as we've mentioned earlier. We saved on dump fees, we saved on water. We had to change the toilet once in the 30 days. So think about that as well. The only expense there would be the cocoa core that's used in the toilet, but that's about it.
So I must say, when we did dump the solids, we were already about 2 weeks in. So we were about 2.5 weeks into the boondocking when I had to change it because we had already had it in use prior to coming to Quartzsite. That said, we got about 3.5 weeks of usage from the composting toilet.
Right. And I did say that we saved on dump fees. Now, we did have to dump. We actually went to the dump between Quartzsite and Parker. Is it
yes.
between Quartzsite and Parker? Yeah. And that was just to empty our gray water at that point.
So that leads into then our gray water dumping. And we talked earlier about our water. It cost us $6 to at the dump station, $6 to go ahead and fill our tanks up in preparation for Parker, and then to dump also. All right, ready to talk costs?
Let's talk costs.
I know you guys have been waiting for this. Thanks for sticking around up to this point.
They've been biting their nails in anticipation?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, costs.
Costs.
You want to take that first one?
Yeah, I talked just a minute ago about fuel for the generator, running at about 8 hours at roughly $2.80 a gallon, $16.75 to power the generator. Yeah. We already had that fuel on board, but we still wanted to put that in the equation. Propane. So the number of fills that we had, we spent roughly $39.73 for propane. That's both the onboard tank and the extra outboard tank that we use.
Right. Brian mentioned the water. We did have 2 full fill-ups in the rig, plus we filled up the water bladder twice in the 30 days, and we spent $15.75. Keep in mind that one of those water fills also included a dump.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
They were nice enough to allow us to dump what little gray water we had. Really, we were only 2/3 full, which is combined for both tanks.
That's
so
right.
we have 100 gallons of space. I was only roughly 2/3 full, and they said, you've been here a couple of times to get water. No problem.
That leads us to camping fees. And we did spend some money in this area. It could have been zero, but we made a decision to stay in a couple places that we knew were going to have great views and were going to give us the ability to be close to the Blue Water Casino and other amenities. So we stayed.
And the drag boat races.
Yeah, which we didn't have any idea.
Check out our last video, see the drag boat races.
Yes.
And the week before that was the 425 off-road truck races.
Yes. When we pulled in there, we had no idea that these drag boat races were going on, and we just kind of lucked out. But
so that's an important note. When you go to these places, always do a little research to see if there's going to be some huge event that you might or might not care to be involved in.
Exactly.
Drag boat races were no big deal. We were far enough away from the 425 truck races that it wasn't a big deal either. So.
Now, interesting enough, with those drag boat races, they were right outside our patio. And then the actual boats would go behind our rig as they were loaded up on their trailers headed back to the marina. So we were kind of front and center for all of that activity, but it was fun. We didn't mind it a bit.
Yeah. Check out our previous video on the boondocking week 3, and you'll see that. So.
Right. Now, where we stayed along the Colorado River in Parker, there was a $15 per night fee that's charged by the Colorado River Indian Tribe. There are no amenities. It is dry camping. You pull off into the lot and set yourself up.
Yeah.
What you're getting right there is the view.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. So we ended up paying $15 per night for a total of $60. After we left Parker, we went to Lake Havasu City and found a spot in an area called The Steps. That is state trust land, and it requires a $20 permit, and I can't remember, how long is that good for?
I believe it's 14 days as well.
Okay. All right. Again, we could have found other areas to camp, BLM land that was free, but we really liked this area and chose to pay the $20.
So just to clarify, if you're an individual, it's $15. For a family or 2 or more people, it's $20. So
Right.
Cost us 20 bucks.
So our camping fees totaled $80. Again, could have been $0.
For the total cost of boondocking, we just pulled out the raw costs associated with boondocking itself. These are certainly going to vary for you, but we didn't want to include food or all those things you typically would purchase anyway.
Yeah.
Whether you're going to be at an RV park or boondocking. So we just have the raw costs that are associated with boondocking.
Right.
Drum roll. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our total costs.
Yes.
And what we wound up spending for the entire 30 days. Again, just the raw costs for boondocking.
So our total for the 30 days, $152.23. And that comes out to $5.07 per day.
Super cheap. If you take out the $80 that we spent for dry camping and the state trust pass, what's that number?
That number is $72.23 for a total of $2.11 per day. That's awesome.
Frankly, that number could be just a slight bit higher, could be slightly lower. That was our best guess based on all of our receipts for everything that we purchased and all those things. So some of those are hard and fast numbers. Some were like the fuel mileage and those things were probably a little bit skewed, but it doesn't matter.
Right. And those are our numbers. I think it's important to say those are our numbers based on our rig, our consumption, our circumstances, and where we stayed.
And lastly, the all-important question that I know you've all been waiting for is, did we save money?
Right. And while that was one of our goals, it wasn't the goal in boondocking for 30 days. So the answer there is...
Kind of.
Kind of. That's really anticlimactic. Where we saw the biggest cost savings was in fuel for our motorhome. As we mentioned, we only moved short distances and we filled up one time, and that was heading to Quartzsite. We spent $75 and we have not filled up since then. We normally spend about $300 on average in 30 days, so for a $225 cost savings, that's why we kind of went,
We didn't factor in the wear and tear on any of the vehicles and the coach and all those things too. We certainly could have done that, but staying put for 30 days, relatively speaking, certainly did reduce wear and tear on the rig. And how do you quantify that? I'm sure you can, we didn't. But definitely a savings there in terms of the health of our rig, and that's important too.
So true. And you know what? I think the overall would be our health as well. As we mentioned,
Sanity.
That decision and planning fatigue was greatly reduced. We had so much fun, really got to enjoy the area. We're from Arizona, and we have never had the opportunity to stay in Quartzsite. I think that was my first opportunity in Parker. No, it wasn't yours. It was my first time in Parker, and it's Brian's first time being here in Lake Havasu, seeing the London Bridge. So with all that combined, we won in the end. We gained a lot. We may not have seen a huge cost savings, but we gained a lot by boondocking.
All right, this is going to wrap it up, but I think one question remains, and that is, would we do this again for 30 days or even longer?
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah.
Yes.
We gained so much more out of the experience.
Yeah.
You know, peace of mind is priceless. You know, not having to spend tons of money while you're on the road, going back and forth all these different places.
And just enjoying where we are.
Yeah.
Living in the moment.
All right, so this is a final wrap. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. That would be awesome. Hit the notification bell so that you're notified when our next video comes out.
And we would love to have you join our Lou crew. And don't forget, leave any comments or questions below.
Absolutely. Until next time.
We'll see ya.